Hello, everybody. This is Waldorf.
And this is Statler.
And today, well, actually, we were digging through our old slides and we saw our old wish list from not last Christmas, Christmas before last.
The Christmas before last.
The 2016 Christmas?
2016 Christmas?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yes, it has.
So, anyway, we found our wish list from then, thought we'd dig it up and run through it and see what's...
How many wishes we got granted by Santa?
Santa Blonde Beer.
Santa Blonde Beer.
So let's see what he brought us. This is what we did, like I said, about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
So as far as army composition, these are what we are looking for. The end of Hero Hammer, special and rare need to be special and rare. We were asking for these to be stand out and not the common units on the battlefield.
Not what everybody wants instead of core.
Exactly. We wanted Death Stars to go away. We wanted, of course, empowering warband play, which is our own little pet peeve thing with our small unit games.
Right, for like small point games.
And break away from the 8th edition Army comp.
Yes.
So that's what we asked for a year and a half ago. And so far we've gotten the Army comp.
Yes.
They've definitely broken away from the 8th edition Warhammer Army comp.
We now, every army book has their own organization as far as categories. You still have core, you still have characters, you still have special.
Right.
But
you also usually have at least one additional category.
Right. There's no more rare, and instead you have one or more additional categories.
Right.
And it's different with different armies, so adds flavor.
It does.
So we got that. And the Hero Hammer, in my opinion, they've gone the opposite way because of the new to-hit table.
The new to-hit table has definitely encouraged Hero Hammer.
Yeah.
Makes the heroes even harder to hit.
Harder to hit, and they hit harder.
You still see Cowboys are kind of ruling the table still.
Yep.
That hasn't changed. So.
And then the special,
Oops.
That's a special rare. You still, people take the core because they have to, and they still don't. They generally speaking can't stand up to a similarly pointed special or rare unit. So.
Correct.
You play with special and rares as your main fighters. Slay Death Stars. There's a little bit of that, I'd say. I would probably put a dotted line on this one with some of the unit caps and some of the other restrictions.
Some of the, I guess. Some of the...
and how the points work with some units. I won't say they're slayed yet because some armies can still do them while others can't, but they're definitely toned down. You don't have the anti-magic ability that you used to have to kill them, generally speaking. There's a few spells, but
right.
So it's I think that's better. And then the change from Horde to Lion I think helps a little bit also.
You think so?
A little bit. I mean,
I'm not sold.
Generally, they fight so well they don't need the rank bonus, but still,
right.
And
that's
then the Empower Warband play, they haven't really done anything with that.
Right. They're still talking about the quick start rules, which
is a different game, so it doesn't really meet our desires for that. That's why we play our own modified version, which everyone's free to do.
Speaking of which, we should do that again soon.
Yeah, we need to get another those together.
Maybe we'll do it next week.
Yeah.
Moving ahead, the pregame logistics. We wanted to reward dynamic play styles. Objectives should not encourage Death Stars.
Right.
Add option for mystical terrain, and we wanted to limit the building effects in competitive play.
Right.
And the only thing we've kind of seen on this one is objectives have, because of the number, there's 6 objectives.
Right. The secondary objectives really.
Correct.
Some do, some don't. So it just gives you more variation in style.
They've discouraged it slightly by having more options.
Right.
Right. So.
Rewarding dynamic play styles. What were we trying to say there? I don't remember.
The all cav and
that type of
thing, and
so they try to go after avoidance, understandably so.
Yeah, because that's typically not a fun game.
Yeah.
Most people do not enjoy those, except for the guy that's avoiding,
so,
who somehow thinks it's a wonderful game.
Exactly. But really, cavalry is still all cav is problematic.
Right.
This is another one. I mean, you could argue it's kind of a dotted line because they've done things with certain armies to make them more aggressive. The dwarven holds. I mean,
they've kind of done stuff with them, with the Vanguard.
They made them fightier, so they don't have to have their war machines.
Right.
Of course, unfortunately, that means they're even better with their war machines.
With their war machines.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
The optional was an optional rule for mystical terrain, and this is something.
Yeah. It's just a little fun thing that you.
Yeah, you know, like the woods could do. They could be different kinds of woods, not excessive like it was in 8th, but just something to add a little flavor to the game.
Right.
And then limiting building effects in competitive play.
Yeah,
we actually got this as a reward, but it was taken away.
Exactly. Here it is. We fixed it.
Yes.
Nope. There it is.
Santa delivered, and the parents came and decided that the toy was too dangerous, like lawn darts or something. You know.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, we liked it when they went to you couldn't enter buildings.
Correct.
Which tends to be how we play buildings anyway.
We always
even
play
under
buildings.
the new rules.
Yes. Even in the last couple of tournaments I've been,
yeah,
I've seen buildings on the table and said, "How are we playing these?" And the TO would always say, "Oh, impassable."
Yep.
So simple.
So now they brought that back, and hopefully they'll reconsider that in the next version.
Yep. Moving on. Models, units, and formations. We asked for hordes, not 10 wide units. We asked for hordes as a rule.
As a rule, not as a formation, but as a rule that only applied to certain horde type infantry, not to elite infantry.
Correct. Horde would be a rule for rats, skeletons, zombies,
right, goblins. You know, maybe even Empire Sonstal dudes. You know, so anybody who doesn't have, you know, core guys who don't fight great.
Yeah. Anyway, I would not include the Sonstal simply because they're kind of their thing's supposed to be the trained fighters.
Well, they have the indirect way because of their orders to
Correct.
get around it anyway. But basically, core guys.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. As a unit rule instead as it's a rule.
Yeah.
Then the conga line, which I can't stand.
And it's been demonstrated recently.
Oh, we've done
the rules issues.
Yes, and we're going to be posting some more on that. It's just, you know, the things you can do with it it's particularly with undead armies. It's just it's so gamey. It's ridiculous. Then the old GW5 model wide rule, which used to be the GW4 model wide rule until they wanted to sell more models.
Right.
I mean, I'm of the opinion that so much would be better in a game if you just had a rule that said you can't be deeper than you are wide.
Or you could be one deeper,
Yeah,
whatever.
Yeah. And then it doesn't matter if you're 4 wide or 6 wide or whatever. It's really
those are your ranks.
Yeah, and so the ridiculous buses and darts kind of in the conga lines. There's this. They wouldn't be you wouldn't be able to do them anymore.
Right.
And the unit would grow in footprint, and you have to make decisions if you want your unit to grow in footprint.
Yep. And the answer to that was you get nothing.
Yes. Yeah, we got nothing. We got none of this.
We got none of
Well, we indirectly got, because they eliminated hordes and created line formation.
That's true.
So
I guess that horde and line, those two words combined, so we got 2 of them.
Well, we kind of got the inverse of what we wanted, because I would argue the line is better for elite troops than it is for
It is. It's just the
crappy
opposite.
So it's the exact opposite of what we were hoping for.
It's an encouraged. It's a buff to the quality units,
right?
Not to crap units,
right? Which are the ones
and it's a nerf to the crap units
that you'd like to see.
So sure, I get 8 more goblin attacks, which is going to help me a lot against those sword masters.
Which I might get an extra wound out of, but
right.
I'm losing because I'm giving up my rank bonus.
Correct.
Sword masters don't care.
Don't care.
They're going to cause enough extra wounds because of all their attacks.
Extra 8 attacks will cause enough wounds to make up for my rank.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right. Movement. We asked for random movement charges to go away or be changed so that they could only be completed as a charge if it was in your
right. Not that you can't charge when you're with random. It could only be done in the forward arc.
Right. You can move anywhere you want, but you can only charge into your forward arc.
Instead of having this current 3d6 Death Blossom range.
Correct. That some monsters have.
Right.
Notable things are the wrecking team and the
Abomination
come to mind.
Anything was kind of scary when it hits you.
Yes.
It's just
they have narrowed it down somewhat because the steam tank has lost it
Yes.
And
What?
the Doom Wheel has lost it. Now, I guess the Steam Deck still has it, but it slowed it down a lot,
Yeah.
right?
Well, they didn't have it. They took it away from that. I can't remember with each edition. For a while, it was one of the few things that had to see what it ran into.
That was the other one, the Infernal Dwarf one.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, which was the way I liked it. But
yeah.
anyway,
And that would just from us fix that instead of making, because basically it means that the area around this unit, whatever it is a no-go zone for any type of light infantry or light cavalry unit, because you just clear them off if they get too close.
Yep.
So the thing that should be able to harass them can't harass them because it's too vulnerable. And allow all visible charges. And what this is that right now you can, say, park your block of infantry next to a building, and so its flank is up against the building. And if somebody is in the side 45 or side 90, they can see the unit. They maybe can see most of the unit, but because they're in the flank, they can't physically charge the target because the flank is covered by maybe a unit or maybe by the building, the terrain or whatever. And we just think that that's kind of odd.
Yeah, I've always had less of a problem with it being if your flank was covered by a unit. Then that I've always had less of a problem with that, because at least you say that unit's there protecting your flank. You shouldn't be able to just charge right past it. But I mean, there's a building there. I can see your entire frontage.
Yes.
Every model in my unit can see the front of your army, of your unit, but I cannot charge it.
Yep.
Because I happen to be at 46 degrees off your front arc.
Exactly.
But anyway.
And just with, not that you'd be able, I mean, if you can see it, you should be able to charge it. If you can't get to the aspect that you're facing, that you could always charge to what's visible.
The visible aspect, right?
You know.
And unit spacing, the weird.
Sometimes it's an inch, sometimes it's half.
An inch, a half, or none if you're in combat.
Yeah.
It's just
it's
it's just a rule inconsistency that's just kind of there.
Right.
And we asked for not that we asked for it, we would have liked to have seen that be changed.
Right. Our asking is posting a video.
Correct. And what did Santa Blonde Beer bring to us in this case? Nothing.
Nothing.
Yes. I'm starting to not like that guy. What's he doing? He's doing nothing for me. Moving on. We'll go to magic. We said we wanted to have multiple arcane items for mages.
Right.
Be able to carry your Dispel Scroll.
A mage could only have one arcane item, which means only a Dispel Scroll and a plus casting was the only thing you ever saw taken because you didn't have any slots.
Correct.
And we also wanted basically Pathmaster for all. We wanted mages to be able to pick their spells instead of having this. You roll randomly and you build your army list around the theme, and all of a sudden you roll crappy and you're not doing so well in your game.
Yep. Apparently, we weren't the only ones that thought this way.
Exactly.
So, Magic has been cleaned up a lot.
Yes, Magic is much better. So now you don't have arcane items. You just have what do they call them now? Enchanted? No.
Trinkets.
They're not trinkets. They're no longer trinkets except for orcs and goblins.
Exactly.
So I can't remember the categories called now. Anyway.
Either. Actually.
Yeah.
That's why I was
kind of embarrassing. But so now you're not limited unless the item is dominant.
Correct.
You can have multiple items, and that opens up all kinds of combos. And since they've toned down a lot of the items too, the combos are neat. It's fine. It's great. Pathmaster for all, they've done that basically.
Choose your spells.
Now you choose your spells depending on what level you are. It's limits.
And I even liked what they did with that.
I like that too. They've rearranged the spells so.
Yep. If you're whatever it is, the apprentice, all you get is the first.
Yep.
If you're adept, you can have 1 through 4, and the big guy can have all 5. I mean all 6.
Yep.
Up to 4 of any can pick from all 6.
Right.
So, I like what they've done with Magic all across the board.
Yeah, I really like that.
I did not like the token things. I'm still not a huge fan of the Veil tokens, but I'm okay with what they've done. It's just I don't know. It's just something else to keep track of, and has always kind of annoyed me a little bit, but nothing. Believe me, Magic is way better than it's ever been.
Yes. No,
in my opinion.
I agree.
All right, moving on. Shooting.
Yeah. So artillery versus archery. I think we're on a totally different planet than the powers that be, because at least I feel that a lot of the artillery for the points, this is about point effectiveness, is much more powerful than the equivalent, basically infantry archer unit with bows
Correct.
or crossbows.
Point for point,
Point
it's
for
usually
point.
much better.
You know, yeah,
For
you get a couple
artillery.
more wounds, but you're often not as tough. And having a few more wounds, so what? You can't win a fight anyway against anything that's going to attack you, with a few exceptions. So,
Well, I mean,
I just compare a volley gun to a unit, to the equivalent unit of archers. How's that going to work out?
yes.
You know.
Yeah, or even a mortar compared to a
Mm-hmm.
unit of archers. It's, just not going to keep up.
Yeah. The archers say, the archers are mobile. Yeah, but the artillery shoots across the table. It doesn't need to be mobile.
It's usually, it, in general, has longer ranges.
Yep.
It doesn't have as many wounds. It can't fight. Most archers can't fight.
Exactly. So
Anyway.
So remember that. And archery effectiveness, and this goes to, I guess, somewhat to the points in the context of,
It's all the modifiers to
it's,
hit. I guess
that's the last
falls in
one.
the last one.
And it's really, strength 3 bows only do so much, so their advantages, they had, what do you call it? Where they can shoot over stuff.
Volley fire.
Volley fire, but that's been toned down, so you still have to see. And
That's been kind of almost nerfed out of existence.
yeah, it's really hard. It can be hard to use. It's like, it has to be the same size. Somebody has to see, and so it can really get toned down. You have to build your army around those limitations. Then the last one is, just so many modifiers. Particularly they've taken away the ability to stand and shoot.
At the rate, yeah. If it's close to you,
Right, if it's close to you with the guys that had
if it's within their advance move,
right. Taking it away, they still have if you're charged, it's an additional -1.
Yeah.
So the only thing the archers have is their shooting, because once you get to them, they're going to die. So,
Right.
but
And now if they get close enough, you can't even do that.
right, you've got long range, which is okay, but you've got cover. Just a lot of mods. So you're often rolling for 5s and 6s to hit
Right.
with a lot, except for the best archers. And then after that, you're usually wounding on a 4 or 5, so it's not.
And then there's, with the strength 3, then even that 5-up armor comes into play.
And then the armor kicks in,
So, yeah,
quite
it's just
often. So
not doing much.
yeah, it doesn't seem to do so much for the points that you pay
Right.
for those types of weapons. Yeah, you can sit back and shoot at somebody, and they're not hurting you back, but they can come and hurt you if they want to. Yeah.
Moving on. So
That's what we wanted.
Those were the points we brought up, and nothing really
Yeah.
has changed on any of those
Exactly.
either. Moving on. Close combat. We did not like parry at all. We asked for, our wish was for a change in parry.
Yes.
Change in hordes, because the problem with parry, the worse the troop, the better the result.
Better the
from it.
impact. Yeah.
Hordes, of course, which we've mentioned before.
Yep.
Determining who wins the fight. This is primarily yours.
Yeah.
Where your idea was whoever does the most wounds wins the fight, and your ranks and banners and
Right.
other effects contribute to your break test, not to
Correct.
who wins.
Correct. It's like I lost a whole bunch of guys. I didn't do anything to you, but I won because I have more ranks and a banner.
Correct.
You didn't win.
You're not going. You might not be going
You might
anywhere.
not going anywhere, but you didn't win.
You didn't win. Just because
so-
I charged in and killed only 2 of you, but you've got 3 ranks and a banner. You didn't touch me,
Yeah.
but I lost.
Exactly. Flanks and rear, that's different. Okay, that should impact things, but I just think to me it simplified. It would further delineate away from the old 8th edition, and it would also simplify some of the combats and just bring more logic.
And we asked for weapon changes weapons to be looked at. And
Yes, and whether it's point costs, which we think are particularly on characters.
and particularly on lances.
Things like lances are, so expensive, but they only get a bonus on the turn they charge, whereas other things have all these other rules bonuses, and they don't cost as much. And then how some weapons work. They've really buffed spears. Spears get so many things now. You get plus AP, you get plus initiative, agility, all this stuff. They've given paired weapons, the ability to counter against parry, which we do like. We think that's a great bonus. Halberds are kind of the same, and it's like it'd be nice to see more weapons counters like how paired weapons work. Maybe halberds might be the pick something, the pair against lances or pair against spears, and do stuff like that, and to make it more of a choice, more of a rock paper scissors, which weapons you take.
Right, and out of that, what they've really done is they've changed hordes.
Yes. So it only gives you a close combat bonus with the ranks.
The ranks, yeah, you've lost your close combat bandit bonus with that.
Right.
So parry, they've done a lot with. Parry has that counter now, hard counter, which is
they haven't done much with parry, but because the paired weapons rule now counters it, it's not as
Correct.
bad. But
and again, the parry, it really more than anything to me, and I think we've talked about it before. More than anything, parry just needs a name change.
Yeah.
It needs to be shield wall. It needs to be whatever.
Right, exactly.
And if it gave you a plus to your defensive weapon skill at the subtraction of an offensive weapon skill, that would be fine. You could take a -2 to offensive to get a +2 in defensive. That's your shield wall.
Right.
So anyway. But
I mean, it does that.
Parry's what it still doesn't
back
change
to the +1
anything.
armor. Anything you could get +1 armor versus missile weapons. It could be any number of things. But yeah.
Yeah, the goblin again. The example I used before.
The goblin or the skeleton.
A goblin versus a goblin gets absolutely no bonus out of his shield except for the armor.
Right.
A goblin versus a scourge of wrath now only gets hit on 4s.
Yeah, because
instead of the 2s.
That axe that thing's holding really cares about your shield.
Right. So I mean, it's just the artificial benefit. The worse you are, the better you get out of it. And that's just anyway. Never been happy with that.
Especially when you're paying these premier points and it turns into the anti character, weapon, which is kind of weird.
Right. Although characters now are, I don't know, I would hate to say the percentage, but it's a huge percentage of characters now are paired weapons.
Yeah.
So they've given up the shields. And,
not the Scourge of Wrath.
No, not yet.
Yet. Yeah.
I'm sure the Demonic Legion's players are pushing for that option.
I'm sure.
Units, Cav, what is it good for? Absolutely nothing. No,
absolutely nothing.
Cav has its place in the game. It's just not. Cav needs something. It's always needed some change to it, and we keep promising to do a video on that, and we never have.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's designed to be a support unit, but that basically means you can't build Cav armies.
Right. The armies that can do all Cav, like Sonstal and
they have
Equitane.
They do other things to They give them broken items to try to compensate, which is not quite the way to do it. It's just, you'd like to see, the ability to play with cavalry army and not just cavalry with bows shooting everybody up, but actual cavalry who can fight.
Right.
And part of that is how Cav, the stats are basically, it works the same as it's always worked under Warhammer. But they've capped how big the units can be also, so they've made it worse.
Right.
Even when you got some Cav, like Orc and Goblin stuff is so cheap, but you still are capped at how big it can be.
15, yeah.
So you can't use your advantage of cheap points because you can't build a unit big enough.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Which is, again, something that came up, we've talked about as well, is at one point, those caps on units seem to be all based around a certain number.
450 point.
Whatever that number, I don't remember what the number was.
It was 450 old points, wasn't it?
But it was, the cap was made to make it so no unit could go much or whatever. Right. This was how many points. So now, but they've gone away from that. So.
Exactly. And some units can now exceed it, and a lot of these units are nowhere close to it.
Yeah. You try to get a zombie unit close to that point limit or whatever. It's not happening.
Exactly. And then simplify command groups, and this is just we both hate that all command upgrades cost 20 points.
I cannot stand that.
Whether it's a goblin or whether it's a Shopti, it's 20 points.
Right.
For, a champion.
Yep.
or cavalry or whatever. It doesn't. What you're getting is not straight up. Yeah, the rule might be the same. You have the 4-inch minimum charge,
your
but
+1 combat res for your banner.
But it's much more important for those shop not to get to you than it is those goblins.
Exactly.
So, and it just makes it's a whole bunch of points. And I like the aesthetic of the game. I mean, I play miniatures because I like the way it looks, and I like seeing flags and musicians and units. And you see people, this unit doesn't have a standard, and this one doesn't have a musician, this one, blah, 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 blah. And now, generally speaking, what you see is everybody takes standard so they can get their free reform, and they don't take the other stuff. You
mean their musician?
Musician, I meant to say,
right.
So they can get their free reform. Thank you, free reform. So it's, to me, just include it with the unit. Either it has command or it doesn't. If it's so you're either paying the points for your command, which is built in.
Built into your starting cost of your unit.
And you don't have to add more points. Just give it to people. I don't think you need to add 60
right.
points to a unit of goblins.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, that's where it gets.
That's where it gets ridiculous. It's like, my upgrades cost more than my unit.
I wouldn't go that far,
so.
it is coming. It did come close.
And just give the people their upgrades, and if they get skirmish order, then they lose command, and instead they traded it for skirmish.
Right.
And it's the same.
Yep. Agreed. But
we didn't get any of
that. None of these have been changed at this point.
I think the laughter, we heard it across the Atlantic at that point. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Buffs and magic items. We would like to have seen all common magic items out of the main rule book.
Right. We'd like to see them allocated to each individual army book and in time pointed appropriate for those particular items. And where a specific item is a problem for a particular army, then you just don't include that one item.
And, it makes it simple to do stuff, even like in the Orc and Goblin book, because I'll use that for an example. You've got the Touch of Greatness weapon, which is, +1 strength and AP and magic attacks.
Yep.
Fine. Pointed at whatever it's pointed. 45 points for an Orc, 35 for a Goblin.
Yep.
Simple.
Yep.
And make it appropriate for the armies that have that.
Right.
And again, because our big thing on that is +1 strength is a lot.
Big difference between a strength 3 guy and a strength 5 guy.
A goblin carrying it and an ogre carrying it. It's a big difference. A vampire with his 5 attacks.
Yes.
It's a much bigger difference than a guy with 3 attacks.
Exactly.
So anyway, it's just you can do it.
So then we.
And actually, you know what? Let me just go ahead to this one.
We'll go. Yes.
There you
go. and that one, they basically did a double up. They reduced the number of items in the core rule book.
Correct.
But then they increased the numbers in the army rule books, but you still have the common ones.
Yep.
Which in a lot of armies that's still the better choices, or the common ones over the book ones, but that's a different discussion.
Yeah, it's hard to find an army without the hero's heart weapon in it.
Yeah, it's just so good compared to a lot of things. Then the next one is to remove the banner of discipline. The old banner of discipline was you basically got a free +1 to your leadership. They haven't removed it, but they've fixed it. Because before it was clearly designed in the old GW days as a way to help a unit that didn't have the general.
In our opinions, that was what it was designed for.
And then somebody made a mistake on a message board and applied a FAQ, and it ruined everything was ruined because it was 15 points, which was crazy. But finally, Ninth Age has gotten rid of that item. Now you have the crown over the helicopter.
Crown of autocracy.
Autocracy, yeah. And you take that, but you actually take it for your general, so it's going against your character's allotment, which was the problem with the banner discipline. It wouldn't go against your character allotment, it would go against your unit. And then you also lose bonus points to your opponent if your general dies. So
correct.
Good design there.
Very good design the way it is now. We wanted to balance out the multi-wound options for mostly we're talking about weapons here. Because it just seemed like multi-wound was everywhere.
Yes, it was growing.
And the odd thing about multi-wound is, maybe it's my perception or whatever, but it seemed to be that was characters, whatever, that really, in my opinion, didn't need this. Were already strong, multi-wound, multi-attack.
Had extra attacks, had extra strength.
Extra strength, extra attacks. Seemed to be ones with the multi-wound options.
We're talking about ogres, and we're talking about warriors of dark gods.
Yeah,
come to mind. Yeah,
and the armies that, in my opinion, needed these,
which is like,
especially
goblins and humans and things of that nature.
and things like that, it just wasn't there. It's just not there anymore.
Right.
So, and that's kind of still the case.
They've toned it down a bit, I think, for units.
They have.
Because they've limited that it's multi-wound against this or against
Correct.
that.
And I'm okay with what they've done with units, a lot of units.
But you still see it in the elite armies. So they don't need it. Too many unit buffs. This is whether it's buff wagons, whether it's abilities, whatever. We just started seeing more and more armies had these things that would synergize, I'll use that word, with their army to make units around them better.
Right.
And it got to the point where like every army had to have, not every army, almost every army had these things, and quite often they were used to cover up things that were supposed to be weaknesses of the army.
Correct. I can give my unit a +1.
It's like, oh, I'm not
agility.
Yes, I'm not. I've got low agility, so I'm going to give everybody around me a -3. That solves that problem, or
right,
or whatever the case may be. Or I have a leadership problem. I'm going to give my army the ability to get 18-inch rerolls with my BSBs.
Right.
So that is, I think, still the case. And the challenge with these buff things is they sound neat and they're kind of cool, but pointing them is almost impossible.
It's really tough because you look at it and like, oh well, it only does this for this, core unit. Only is getting this out of it, and it makes this core unit okay if we do this.
Exactly.
That's actually not a bad idea. Let's do that. And then all of a sudden, the first guy who's making his list says, yeah, that does okay with my core unit, but that's fantastic
on my special and my rare.
Exactly.
So that's what I'm going to be buffing. Yep.
Anyway.
And then.
So that's it's like I said, because of that, it's really tough to price these things.
Yeah. And as I said, quite often it seems to be it's just a way to get around what's supposed to be weaknesses of armies. Last one is more fixed buffs, and
with banners mostly.
This was I wanted to see more magic banners or more things where I could add a weapon skill here or speed here, just to tailor armies and make them more dynamic play styles. To the earlier point, and they've done that. They've added a lot more magic banners or banner enchantments. And you can have multiples of them now. So you can do some, there were a few that were broken there for a while, but, but you can do things, hey, I want my army to be a little faster. I want my army to be a little more defensive, You can do that, and I think that's kind of neat.
It's kind of neat, but it also kind of does the same thing we talked about earlier, where it's covering up your units. Sometimes some of them can cover up your units' weaknesses.
It can. That's
your army's weaknesses.
That's not what you would like to not see that, but yeah.
Right. I've got a slow army, so I'll give everybody a banner speed.
Right.
3 core units will get banner speed, and that way they can keep up.
Yeah.
But anyway, but they have given us more buffs with the banners.
Definitely given more buffs. I might like to see even more myself, but
almost every unit can carry a magic banner now.
Yes, and they got rid of that stupid veteran standard bearer rule. And,
correct.
Yeah.
It wasn't stupid. It was a idea whose time had passed.
Yes, it was an 8th edition's idea whose time had finally passed.
Anyway, moving on.
Special rules.
Special rules. We would like to see special rules simplified and combined.
Yes.
And special rules
simplified was the point of English.
And special rules seem to have gotten more more complex and more
convoluted to read. Yes.
Correct. So
and then just to make it even better, they're now separated into multiple sections. So finding
harder to look them up.
So even looking them up is difficult.
Right.
Is this a unit improvement, or is this a character, or is this a weapon? I don't know.
Good luck. Just scan for it.
And then there's a lot of things that they're so similar. You start wondering, is it really worth the difference? And my big one is
your big one is regen.
I'm sorry,
fortitude.
Fortitude versus aegis.
Right.
It's like, is it really that different that you have to? Because they're working so hard to make them different. It's like, is it really worth it?
Right.
Of all the things in the game,
all the effort.
Just treat them both the same.
Right.
Same with how crumble works for different, whatever it's called now, for different armies. So there's things that are they different enough to? Does it make sense to really? Does the army lose anything really if it is the same as something else?
Correct.
And it's just one less thing they have to remember.
All right. And we talked about point value and Cav being overpriced for what it is.
Yes.
They're paying a premium for
speed and some degree
armor. And armor piercing is fairly prevalent now.
Armor piercing is very prevalent.
Points for weapons we mentioned before. Why is that lance that you can use maybe 2 or 3 times a game costing the same as that great weapon?
Yep.
Of course, the great weapon does penalize you on initiative
unless you have
agility.
Unless you have lightning reflexes.
Which cancels that out.
Yes.
Armor. The points of armor where, the 6-up armor is on everybody, but everyone's got armor penetration. You're paying for it.
Yeah, I mean,
was the problem.
It's almost like, what's the point? I mean, you see a little bit like, what's the point of having light armor on things?
Correct.
There's so much -1 out there, and it's kind of whatever. And and on characters, it's like, I can go from light to medium, and it costs me an extra 5 points. It's like, well, really?
Right. Yeah, and then the last point, of course, on this one was the balance of the troop cost versus their effectiveness. And this is kind of what we mentioned before. It's like, in my opinion, of 400-point units, if they get into a fight straight up, then whichever one wins that fight, it should be kind of almost a toss-up which one actually comes out of that fight ahead. And the one that comes out and wins should be fairly mauled.
Exactly, unless one has a natural counter to the other.
Correct. But, I mean, in
general... in the form of weapon or whatever. But that's what should generally happen. Now, in all fairness, this is aspirational.
Yes. This will never be achieved.
This will never be achieved. And they're constantly working the tweaking points just to keep doing it, 5 points a time. But but still, there just seems to be some things that you see very similar units in 2 army books, and they're pointed differently, or weapons upgrades, like, why is this guy paying 20 and +2, and this guy only gets it for free? It doesn't, it's not always clear. And I think it's getting worse because they're focused on, this unit's used a lot, so we're gonna make it more expensive in this army.
Correct.
And this unit's not used enough in this army, so
let's decrease the
we're gonna decrease. But I got the exact same units in this other army, but it's used okay there because there's other composition, because there are other decisions that lead to taking things.
Correct. But that's just
but it's aspirational, and they'll continue working on it, and they should, and great.
Yep. And that's going to do it. So that was our review.
The review of our
wish list.
The review of our wish list.
Exactly.
Yes.
And if you notice,
we say that it was a very bad Christmas for us. Yeah.
Other than magic, it was a fairly bad Christmas for us because we didn't get a lot of what we wanted.
We should have got like a background with like pieces of coal.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I will say this: not everything we want we should get.
Oh no, everything I want I should get.
I'll admit that.
I've lived long enough. That's the way it's got to be.
That's true. It's just that we're old enough that we want this stuff.
Exactly. Because we may not be around long enough to see it.
Anyway.
Get cracking.
That's going to do it for now. Thanks for listening.
Until next time.